on. Now, as you'll be fully aware, if you perhaps have been looking to get a particular item or product, or if you're a business, again, it could be, it could range from anything, air conditioning units, cars, vehicles. The supply chain has basically been thrown up in the air, and then things are landing all over the shop ever since the global pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic hit global supply chains. You can imagine why, with various lockdowns and people unable to get to ports and much, much more. The knock-on effects around the world are set to continue throughout this year. How do we know about this? Well, the annual logistics report from the business group Logistics UK is out today. Let's speak to the Chief Executive live of Logistics UK. Good afternoon, David Wells.
Good afternoon, Jim.
So, I know it's quite a hefty, weighty report, but first of all, give us a sense then as to where we're seeing the disruption.
So the main areas of disruption, I think, are supply of critical factors. We well know about the semiconductor issue, which is affecting the automotive industry particularly, but also clearly the impact of the war in Ukraine is impacting the supply of fuel, and that has driven up the prices that affect not just consumers when they fill up their car, but the road haulage industry. It's affecting the shipping industry, and it's also affecting air cargo industry. So all of those sectors are seeing increases in their rates in the last 3 months.
I certainly remember that a while ago, I think I have to think back to perhaps last autumn, there was a real sort of a panic buying going on at the petrol pumps. And at the same time, I seem to recall there was a real lack of HGV drivers. Have we found those drivers?
So, to be fair to the government, which I like to be fair and evidence-based, the government has done a lot of good things. The industry has also stepped up. I think it will take about a year to clear the backlog which was created by the pandemic. So during the pandemic, we weren't testing anyone for fairly obvious reasons. You didn't want to climb into a cab with someone that got COVID. So during the pandemic, we probably saw a drop-off in the number of drivers by about 45,000 based on the original figure, which was about 45,000 short. So it sort of effectively doubled during the pandemic. The government recognised that with all the pressure in the media that was created around the shortage of HGV drivers. And they are testing at a much higher rate. The industry is training and putting those people forward for testing. And I think by the end of 2020, maybe 2022, early 2023, we should be back more on an even keel to where we were pre-pandemic.
And I'm pretty sure we had discussions about when Brexit was initially done in December or just after December 2019. There was, the reports of the queues of lorries and the paperwork issues all tied in with the pandemic as well. Has that all been resolved, or are we just not talking about it?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. There's firstly the controls and paperwork that you need to export, and the EU imposed those straight away when we finally exited at the end of the transition period. And I think, apart from a few hiccups, they have largely been overcome, and the flow of goods is moving through Dover and other ports reasonably successfully. We had the issues earlier where there was a shortage of ferries that were taken off for maintenance. But then the other side of that coin is what's happening on imports. And many of the controls that were due to come in July and then later in this year around sanitary and phytosanitary products, those have not been imposed. So the government and the border force and customs people are not checking product coming into the UK, and the government have intimated that they have no intention of introducing those controls until they've got a digital means of checking and enforcing.
So what does that mean?
Well, it means that the product is that they're basically working on the assumption that the EU is checking its own product. So why would we need to check it? Right. We're not imposing the tariffs that we could impose and the revenue that we could get from that. I think part of the problem for the government is actually how do you communicate with 27 member states and all the businesses that need to export into the UK. So it's a big challenge. They'd like to do that digitally. Our members' issue with that is that they've done all the necessary preparation for July of this year, but it's not. It's all been unnecessary.
What's happening with the? Obviously, most motorists are certainly feeling the difference when they're filling up their vehicle at the moment in terms of the petrol pumps. But for HGV drivers, who's taking the hit on that when they're filling up their HGV?
Well, it depends on what deal you've got with your customer. So many of the larger operators, more savvy operators, although I suspect many smaller operators are just as savvy, they will have a fuel price in sort of index built into the contract, so that as fuel prices rise, they pass that on to the customer. So ultimately, the consumer is feeling the pain of this, because if you want product delivered to a retailer, the retailer is having to pay the extra fuel through the index in the contract, and they will put that onto the shelves of product that they sell on the high street. So ultimately, this is driving inflation.
Now, let's try not to depress everybody too much. This programme sometimes does do that with the reality of the news we report. But the report itself, does it have sort of glimmers of hope? You're talking about 2022, 2023, where things get back to a bit more normal. But, I mean, is that the positive bit we take, that things will eventually get better?
Well, I think two things I'd like to say. The industry is actually very positive, very optimistic. Its confidence has actually grown. The index and the report shows that. The second thing is, and watch this space, the industry has come together with government and is going to launch a campaign to improve the image of the industry and attract younger and a more diverse workforce, and showcase all the excellent career opportunities, not just lorry driving, because logistics is so much wider than lorry driving, all the excellent careers that are available. And that programme is about to be launched tomorrow by the Minister, and watch this space.
Thank you for the exclusive, the mini exclusive. I quite like that. David Wells, Chief Executive of Logistics UK. Thanks for joining us live.
The news in 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes. This is LBC News.
A Minister.
LBC News.
A Minister.
LBC News.
A Minister.
LBC News.
A Minister.
LBC News.
A Minister.